and Kismet. Kismet was a Yorkshire Terrier. You know, you can throw treats over the fence, and you know, keep an eye on him, or if you feel badly, just throw treats over. And it was a wooden fence, so there were a couple holes here and there, or cracks. So sure enough, I go over, assuming no one was home or whatever. So I was like, I guess so. I was all wrapped up into their story. And I throw a treat or two over, and I did feel sorry for the dog. He was like a pit mix and kind of, you know, a big metal chain, all dirty and muddy and everything. So anyway, I go to leave their house with their dogs to walk. Just before I open the door, the actual neighbor began to knock, and then she started yelling at me for throwing treats over the fence. So anyway, I was like, oh my God, you know, I just apologized. I'm like, I'm so sorry, you know. The owners of the house actually called me and said throw treats over. I just sort of like tried to get her to go really quick. She's like, don't even, you know, she had attitude and everything. This was technically an African-American woman. And you know, in a way, I got a lashing and they didn't. You see what I mean? So on some level, it took me a while to realize in my brain that I might have been set up, and they would be able to premeditate something like that. So I wouldn't do that to someone. Like, I think they knew in advance, and I wondered even if the next door neighbor was in on it, because so many things happened that are similar. A lot of things went on in my case, but that would be one example, and similar things happened to that in the years following. That was actually 2010. Actually, it was 2009 or 10, because there was a slow build up to 2011. So once 2011 hit, wow, my life changed on a dime overnight. I thought I'd be murdered. I actually did think it was the last night of my life. And you know, after 2011, I didn't really meet up with Steph and Meg or anything, and they were already planning and plotting their move to the Pacific Northwest. Steph has a huge family there, I guess. But anyway, you see how I wound up abused and sort of the patsy or what have you, or I wound up taking a hit, and that hurt me a lot, that this woman like totally flew off the handle because I threw a treat over. I was able to brush it off very quickly since I wasn't the owner of the house and I was there walking dog. I was like, oh, they told me, they left a note even, luckily I thought quickly. But still, the dog was suffering. I didn't know what to say to the woman, and I was like, let me get out of trouble right quick. But I did wonder, did Steph and Meg know this woman personally? Did they set it up, all of them? Like, say they all worked for the FBI. So digging up Broad Street, by the way, I meant to tell you that there's a little kind of a humorous ad out there put on that with Jason Bateman's voice. Jason Bateman being a famous like comedic actor from Arrested Development and other like Growing Pains or similar, and he promotes that Kamala is normal. Like, can anyone just be normal for once? Like a normal person who had a normal life, not all this like, lots of money or this, that, and the other. I've been saying for years, is anybody normal? Because I can't meet anyone who doesn't do these setups. Like, what the hell? What's wrong? Like, is it a virus? Anyway, but he said normal, and also in addition, I noticed that people who normally would not endorse certain people are endorsing those people. So we have Dick Cheney and his daughter endorsing Kamala. These are opposite sides of the aisle. And also Robert F. Kennedy endorsing Trump. Keep going. These are opposites. Opposites attract. So what we get from the opposites attract thing is we have people who might know how to control other people, and they're coming in on purpose, showing support for the presidential candidates whom they normally wouldn't support. So if you have Kennedy supporting Trump, then I'm wondering if the Kennedys want to control him on some level, or vice versa. he was asked, Kennedy, there was a whole phone call apparently that was posted on Twitter, you know, Trump going on and on about horse pills and this, that, and the other. You know, I think Kennedy almost felt obligated to endorse, or he decided to go with it. But Kennedy is Commonwealth. He's a natural person. He promotes like healthy living, healthy eating, you know, don't hog up resources. And Trump would be on the opposite side of that spectrum per se. And the Cheneys are Republican, and to go for a Democrat, like, I don't know everything they stand for, but, you know, liberals in the past would absolutely not love the Cheneys. That's the old script from at least the mid-2000s, early and mid-2000s. Like, a liberal would never, you know, that would be blasphemy, if you will. So anyway, so when I see Broad Street being dug up, I'm wondering if they're doing it, it could be counter-terrorism on some level, or counter bad activity, because people have to drive slower, they have to avoid all the rigmarole on Broad Street. Or is it symbolic by language? A broad is a broad, you know what I mean? A broad is a woman. In fact, a friend of my mom and dad's from years ago, who I talked to once about my mom and dad's divorce, she was saying, well, you know, Barbara was a friend technically of my mom, and she wound up with our dad. So anyway, but she used to say, hey, Gail, and Gail would be my mom, there's a sale on bread. This is how scripted and how symbolic people behave. There's a sale on bread. You know, if you want to come with me and pick up this bread on sale, I can keep your excess bread in our freezer, since my mom and dad only have so much space in their refrigerator or in the house in general. Like, if you want to freeze your bread and you don't have, you know, she had an extra freezer. But that's a way to get my dad, you know, without my mom realizing it. Like, my mom thinks she has to trust everyone, so she would put up even with a lame doctor because she doesn't want to be mean to the doctor. She wouldn't get a second opinion because she wouldn't second guess a doctor. So we must learn that there are people in positions of power, and you don't want them there at all. That includes doctors and even some friends. So anyway, so my mom went along with it according to this woman who I spoke to. She said, so your mom, you know, said, okay, great, I'll keep extra bread up there. And Barbara, who was a little bit more extroverted and pushy and forthcoming, would say, and just send your husband, you know, after work he can pick up the bread. Anyway, so it became a thing where I guess my dad would pick up the bread whenever needed, the back stock of bread in Barbara's freezer. And neighbors, according to this person I spoke to, actually said, oh, there goes Frank to pick up the the bread. That's how crazy that is. I'm like, what? No. So there have been conniving, manipulative, deceitful, premeditated people forever. Some people learn that when they grow up, and some people don't. I mean, some people just wouldn't, because I would never want to deceive someone that badly. And it seems like too calculated. You're like, wow, where does someone learn to be that calculating? If it were true, you know? Anyway, we actually have a bread street here. I used to take care of dogs at 133 South Bread Street, which is near the Betsy Ross house here